this is the best horror movie that I've seen this year. Hi everyone, welcome back to Laura Loves Horror. Bit of a different background for today. I just wanted to keep it cozy and chill as we dive into our spoiler review of Obsession. If you still haven't seen the film and don't want this spoiled for you, do not watch this review. I actually have a spoiler-free reaction that I'll link in the description of this video and here. I think you might be able to watch it. So definitely check that out and go to cinemas. I highly recommend this movie. It's the best movie I've seen this year and the best horror movie for the year. In my opinion, I think it's going to be the horror movie of the year. The film is directed by Barker. This is his first debut feature film. He has also directed Chair and Milk and Cereal. You can watch Milk and Cereal on YouTube for free. Definitely go check it out. It's a free movie that he's created. So go give it a watch. Really great. So the film is called Obsession and it is about a young man called Bear, and he really wants his crush to like him back. So he purchases a one-wish willow from a whimsical magic woo-woo shop, and he makes a wish here hoping that his crush Nikki will love him more than anyone else. We know it's not an original concept. It is very similar to the monkey paw concept and be careful what you wish for and things like that. But this film, I can tell you right off the bat, is a film that executes such a simple concept perfectly, and I just absolutely love this film. And now it's in cinemas. You can definitely go check it out. I highly recommend it. There are so many elements of this that I really loved, and we're going to dive into that as we go into the plot. So what I thought I'd do is I'm just going to go through the plot with you and I'm going to break it down, and I'll also be sharing what I liked, what I didn't like about the film, and some themes and points about that as well that I picked up on and that I noticed. So let's get into it. So the film opens with Bear confessing his feelings for Nikki, and we see that he's sitting in a diner, but then after he's confessed everything, we quickly see that he's actually confessing it to a waitress and just practicing. His friends Ian and Sarah, and they all work together with Nikki at a music store, and we can quickly understand Bear's personality. He's lonely, he's insecure, he's very shy, he really likes her, but he doesn't know how to tell her. So just one of those very relatable scenes that you would see in, I guess, like a romantic comedy or a show about that as well. I think Michael Johnson really captures this personality really well. All of the acting in this film is incredible. So after this scene, Bear returns home, and then we see that his cat Sandy has unfortunately passed away from an overdose after getting into food and his oxycodone tablets and had a drug overdose that way. And I'm usually extremely sensitive to anything involving animals in film, but don't worry if you're sensitive to that as well. You can clearly see that the cat is fake. You see it from the back. So yeah, this was heartbreaking for me to watch. I just hate anything involving that. So Bear is visibly distressed and disturbed by what happened. He's devastated. He's in bed. He's cleaned the house. He's crying. Obviously all of the normal reactions that you would have to losing a pet. So he's sitting in bed, and then he gets a call from Nikki, and she actually wants him to come out tonight, and she's whining. She's like, oh, come on, like, why don't you want to come out? And then she confesses to him, oh, I have to tell you something. And he's like, oh, well, what is it? And I'm curious as well because we know that he really likes her. Maybe she likes him back. And then she tells him she plans on quitting the music store that they all work at together. And she invited him out for drinks, and he's really not feeling it, but then he just is convinced to go. So on the way to the bar, he then stops at this shop, this mystical shop that, you know, like the kind of woo-woo shops we say that sell like crystals and sage and things like that. So he goes into this store because she also mentioned on the phone call that she lost her necklace, and so he wants to buy her a new crystal necklace. And while he's shopping for that necklace, he comes across the One Wish willow. So this is just sort of like it's advertised as a novelty toy, a collectible item. He then takes it to the counter. He talks to the sales assistant, like, does this actually work? And she says it's mainly a collectibles item, but people then also use it and they complain that it doesn't work and they've had problems with it. So yeah, following that, Bear leaves the store, and then the next scene is at the bar. So this is our first introduction to Nikki, played by Indy Navarrete, and we can tell that her personality is very vivacious, playful. She's very confident, a little bit sassy, and makes jokes, and we kind of understand, okay, like there's a huge contrast between her personality and Bear's, and he really likes her. He's looking at her, he's smiling. Times where he wants to go to the bar, his friends trying to tell him, like, yeah, you should talk to her. Come on. So he goes to the bar with Nikki and he's trying to ask her out, but they just keep getting interrupted and this and that. And yeah, unfortunately, just bad timing for him. And then I was really surprised about this, that he didn't tell anyone at the bar that Sandy passed away until Sarah starts talking to him. So clearly they have an intimate, like a close relationship. But I would have thought if it were me, I would have been so devastated. I would have told my friends straight away, like, I don't know if I can come tonight. My cat died. But this is another example of that we see from Bear, where he really struggles with, I guess, opening up, communication and things like that. And I guess maybe you don't really want to be a bit of a buzzkill when you're seeing your friends. You might just not want to think about it. So that's understandable as well. But I just thought that was more of an example, an additional example of his character. After that, so we see that Sarah's comforting him. She's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. What happened to Sandy? And following that, they're leaving the bar. Nikki is not feeling it. She doesn't want to go out. The group really want to go out and party and stay longer, but Nikki actually wants to go home. And so then we see this dynamic of like, she's asked Ian, can you drive me home? And then we see Bear offer to drive Nikki home. Bear offers to drive Nikki home, and we see just before she gets in the car with Bear, Ian makes a joke about like, oh, what are you two going to get up to? And something like that. I don't remember verbatim what he says, but her reaction is like, ew, don't say that. And I remember this moment. I felt it was so well done and so realistic. I was like, oh. And then he looks at Bear and they're just looking at each other and he's like, shit. Because then we see, this is our first glimpse into kind of seeing, Nikki's not really that into him. Oh no, this is really troubling. So yeah, as they're driving towards Nikki's house, they open up a bit and she tells him that she hasn't really been able to talk to other people the way that she can open up to him. So they arrive at Nikki's place and she gets out of the car and he really wants to tell her how he feels. And she asks, do you like me? And his response is, well, yeah, as a friend. And he panics and he just cannot be honest with how he feels. And so she walks off. She goes back into her home. Frustrated, he decides to take the One Wish Willow out of his bag, crack it. I wish Nikki Freeman loved me more than anyone else. We see the effects of this immediately. After this wish has been made, we see Nikki come back to the car and she's saying, hi, like, can we hang out? Oh, can I get in the car? Or can we go back to your place? And it's really bizarre because completely different to her character, which is really great. I think I really like the contrast, and I think it was intentional for her character to be super like vivacious, not self-centered, but just see Bear as a friend, and then to have her completely switch and say, I want to hang out, what's going on? The acting is so well done here because you can see it as the wish is sort of taking effect, because she's sort of oscillating between, oh wait, that's weird, why am I being weird? I don't know why I'm doing this, and actually wanting to hang out with him. And I really think that this is a great portrayal of her falling under this spell, but it hasn't 100% taken full effect yet. And anyway, this starts to freak out Bear a little bit, but then she gets into his car. She tells him, my dad's been really sick. My dad's really unwell. So yeah, can I just spend the night at yours? I'm really struggling. So I think he's a bit freaked out. He's like, okay, well, I need to look after her. She's probably been drinking. Something's going on. So they go back to Bear's house and she's like, can you stay with me? Can we sleep together? And he's like, okay, yep, sure, whatever you want. Is everything okay? Let me know if you need anything. And so they're getting ready for bed. They're in bed. So Nikki, under this wish, she starts kissing Bear. They start to kiss. And this made me jump because they're making out. And then suddenly she pulls herself back. She snaps back to reality for a second. And she says, what the fuck? What am I doing? Oh my God. And that scared me. That made me jump when she did that. A great jump scare. I did not see that coming at all. So after she jumps back, it's freaked Bear out, obviously, because it made him feel like, oh, have I done something wrong? You scared me. Don't do that again. And then she immediately reverts to, I'm so sorry. That was weird. I promise I won't do that. I'm so sorry. And just profusely apologizing to him. And I really love Indy Navret's acting in this movie. Her acting is incredible. I really love the way that her character would have moments where her behavior would get worse and worse and worse. And then we reach this crescendo and then immediately she would apologize and start freaking out and saying, I'm so sorry. And I can understand why some people have mentioned like, oh, this really feels like codependency and these shifts of like my partner might have had borderline personality disorder, but in a very extreme, over the top way. After this, she's extremely apologetic. She's apologizing profusely, and then they go to bed. Next morning, he walks into the kitchen to find his poor cat just on the ground with all these flowers surrounding it in the middle of the kitchen. And she said, "Oh, I thought you'd like it." And he's really disturbed by this. And he says, "Nikki, no, it's weird. You can't do things like that." After the incident with the cat, they then have to work that day. So Nikki and Bear both go to work, and the whole gang's at work at the music store. And Ian is excited to hear about what happened between Bear and Nikki. And he's like, "Bro, like, tell me what happened," everything like that. So I really love this sequence as well. This film does this a couple of times where it explores depth of field really well. And what we see is when Bear is trying to explain to Ian, "No, I'm really concerned about her behavior. She was very strange. Things are happening," explaining what happened last night and about the cat and everything. Not only is Ian saying, "Oh, it must have been drugs. She must have been on MDMA. She must have taken something." And so they realize, like, okay, maybe that's a reason for the strange behavior. But this whole time that they're having this conversation, we are focused on Bear and Ian, but we see Nikki in the background blurred out of focus. And she's just staring the whole time, looking over like this. And until the film actually closes, I'm like, oh, she's still looking at me. And she's just like staring at them. And I just loved that. I just love that detail. I thought it was done so well. After work that day, Nikki gets a ride home with Ian, and then Bear goes home and we see that he's on the phone to Ian, and Ian's telling him, "Don't worry, I spoke with Nikki. She just took some MDMA. She's saying that's the reason why she was acting really weird," and things like that. While Bear is on the phone to Ian, we then hear a knock at the door, and guess who it is? It's Nikki. And she is sort of just out of the light, slightly in the shadows, standing there in a beautiful red dress. And she said, "Oh, I'm just wearing this because I had nothing else. It was washing day and I had nothing else to wear." And that's so funny because I've done this before too when I really wanted to look good, and I was like, "Oh, it's just something I've put on." So that was funny. I related to that a little bit. And so she's all dressed up. She's on the front porch talking to Bear, and she then explains to him, apologizes for her behavior, and tells him, "My behavior last night was erratic because of what I had taken and what I've been going through with my dying father, but I genuinely have feelings for you. I really like you." And after this, we have a romantic montage of Bear and Nikki together, kissing, cooking together over a period of weeks. The viewer is then understood, okay, they're in a relationship now, everything's great, he's happy, he has what he wants, they're watching movies together, just everything that you would see in a very Hollywood romance film. And I really loved this montage. I thought it was really great, and just great for progression of the film as well. So after this montage scene, we then have a scene with Bear and Nikki at a restaurant. And you might have already seen this scene as a teaser online, but I'll just quickly break it down for you. So this is one of the first scenes that we really start to see a shift in her behavior become very disturbing. So while they're at the restaurant, Bear gets a phone call from Ian, and Nikki's kind of a bit annoyed that Ian's calling and it's kind of disrupting their date, which is not unrealistic. But Bear takes the call and she said, "Okay, just make it quick." So when you're watching the movie, they're sitting in a booth off to the right, and then he leaves the booth and then walks towards the camera behind a wall. So we can see the people dining in the background. There's the booths, but he's in a private section, and he's on the phone to Ian. And this is where we get a reveal of some information. And this is where it starts to shift. And I really love this part of the movie. So Ian then tells Bear, "I have to be honest with you, Nikki never expressed that she was into you. She never had feelings for you. She always saw you as a friend. So I just think it's a little weird that suddenly she's just obsessed with you. You're spending all the time together. She's in love with you." And in addition to that, I looked into Nikki's dad, and we found him, we've looked him up online, and we've found out he's fine. He doesn't have cancer. He's not dying. He's all good. He's living his best life. So she's clearly lying about that. And this is really upsetting and really disturbing. And I just need you to know as a friend, this is weird. I think you need to break up with her. Like, you need to have a conversation. I'm just letting you know, and I'm sorry. As he's having this conversation with Ian, we see Nikki get up out of her booth, and she sort of walks towards Bear and like kind of just look and see where he's gone, and then she goes and sits back down. But we know that she hasn't heard the conversation. At the moment I was like, oh no, we're listening to some really juicy information, some really important, pivotal storyline, and she's going over like, get back. And so following the phone call, he hangs up. Bear is visibly distressed by this, and he walks back to Nikki and he sits down. Just to call it back, at this point, Bear hasn't been fully convinced that it was the One Wish Willow that caused her to magically fall for him, because, you know, she did apologize for taking drugs that night, and she did say, no, I actually genuinely really like you, even though I'm going through a lot. So to this point, Bear is convinced, okay, this is not the gimmicky thing, it's just a funny coincidence. Then he goes back to the booth and talks to Nikki and confronts her and gently asks her, does your dad really have cancer? Like, is he really sick? And this is I love this scene. And then Nikki starts to say, no. And she's smiling, and she starts to shake her head. No. I thought we're having a nice date. And she starts to freak out, and it's one of those cringy, uncomfortable moments where she's yelling at him in the restaurant. This is one of the best scenes, I think, for the movie. Said, we're having a nice date. And you can tell he just really wants to keep her happy and diffuse the situation. It's really awkward. But yeah, she's totally freaked out by this point. It's not too far from reality in some situations. I can imagine where there's been very codependent relationships, or people with mental health problems, or you just don't know how to manage your emotions. So her outburst, while it is something that is really uncomfortable, I wouldn't say it's so far from reality. I feel like there's situations that someone could easily have if they're really upset about a situation. So I thought this was executed so well. So then from this point, this is the point of no return, where we start to see things just get progressively worse for Bear. And that night they're at home, and he wakes up and she's not in bed. And this is another great scene. So he is laying in bed, he sits up, and the camera sort of focuses on the room, and you can just see her standing in the shadows. This was really great to watch in cinema, because you're just looking, where is she? And he's laying in bed and she's standing in the shadows just watching him. And he says, Nikki, what are you doing? And she said, I like to watch you sleep. And this whole scene was so freaky, because he's trying to be calm. He knows that something's off. Her behavior is really weird. He wants her to come back to bed, but she's just acting so bizarre. And this is the point where I actually wondered if they used CGI or something to alter her movement slightly, because this scene, I don't know what it was. So while she is standing, I don't know why this made me think of this other horror movie, but if you've ever seen the original Japanese horror movie Pulse, or Cairo in Japanese, there's this really scary scene where the ghost is slowly walking towards the camera. And for some reason, just for a brief moment, it did remind me, her movements towards him from the back of the room reminded me slightly of that. And she's making her way towards him, and then she's giggling and running around, and she holds a vase to her head. It's just really bizarre behavior. So anyway, she eventually gets back into bed. We do start to see her behavior just become increasingly worse and worse, but then she also retreats and apologizes when she realizes it freaks him out. So it's almost like we see her behavior get worse and worse. Bear freaks out, gets upset, she freaks out back at him, and then splits back to, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I don't know why I'm doing this. So this, I can understand the way that she's acting and the way that she acts multiple times in the film with this sort of change in emotions. I can completely understand that this would actually be quite hard for some people to watch if they've ever experienced relationships with people with mental health problems or mood swings, but a very extreme version of that. The film does an amazing job, and the actors of portraying that. While Obsession does take those elements and those themes to the extreme, it's still grounded in reality, and I can still imagine people behaving in this way in some circumstances, which I think makes the film even scarier. And I really do love horror movies that are mostly, well, grounded in reality as much as possible, because those are the films that terrify me the most. And movies about obsession and stalking and things like that genuinely really freak me out, and I find them so effective. And I don't think her acting's over the top at all. I've seen some people complain and say, oh, well, you know, she's too over the top, or the film didn't have enough, like didn't go too extreme and things like that. But you can't make everyone happy. Then we get to the next day after the night. So Bear goes into the bathroom and he's noticed that some of his hair has been cut. He goes and talks to her about what happened last night. He really wants to sort of say, what was going on? Can we talk about it? That was really weird. But she's just extremely apologetic, almost back to normal, and saying, oh, that was really weird. I'm really sorry. Yeah, no more weird stuff, I promise. This won't happen again. And she makes him his lunch and she goes, okay, I've made you your lunch for work. Here you go. He takes his lunch, and I love this scene right here. So after they're talking on the couch, they've resolved everything. It's great. He gets up and then he goes to walk out the front door, and you just see the shock on his face as he's looking at the front door. And I got chills when I saw this on screen. So he's looking at the front door and he's like, and he looks at the front door, and then the camera shows the front door. It is completely covered in duct tape. So she's duct taped the entire door. The entire door is silver and it's duct taped all around. So he can't leave. So he's trying to leave the house, and then he finally gets the front door open, and she says, well, if you can't get the front door open, you could just stay home. And yeah, I just thought that was so chilling. It was such a simple thing. As the audience, seeing the actor's reaction before we were able to see what happened was just great. And it was something that was so simple but so effective. Love that. So he goes to work, shuts the door. Nikki is standing there smiling at him and says, okay, have a good day, I'll see you later. And she has this haunting, forced smile like this, holds that smile for a little bit too long. That immediately reminded me of Pearl, the ending sequence in Pearl with the credits where she's just smiling and starts to cry. Also, Nikki starts urinating herself on the floor. So we clearly know, okay, she's possessed, there's something wrong. We already know that something's wrong, but it's just getting worse. Funnily enough, I watched an interview today with Kari Barker, and he did mention that he watched Pearl with Indy Navarrete. I can definitely see the inspiration here. And he also mentioned that he didn't want the actress to feel like she was possessed or look like she was possessed. He really wanted her to portray an overly jealous girlfriend. I think the performances in Obsession embody just that. She is the over the top, the jealous girlfriend, like, why didn't you love me? Why didn't you like me? Like Pearl is. And I absolutely loved it. She's never the type of girlfriend that's never angry, but very whiny. You could quite easily veer into the possession behavior, but I really love that there's a conscious effort to ensure that Nikki is the obsessive girlfriend, the jealous and whining, like, oh, I just want you to like me, which is even scarier in my opinion, and so realistic. We also start to see Indy's behavior in the film as she starts to act quite in a disturbing manner, and she also says these things to Bear all the time, like, I love you so much, I love you so much. And it's just great. I love her character a lot, and I also have a lot of empathy for her character because she doesn't want to be acting this way. She doesn't like this guy, but she's forced against her will under this possessed spirit, under this wish that she does like him and she has to be with him. So fast forward, Bear is at work and he's talking to Sarah. They're hanging out. They're having lunch break. Bear opens his lunchbox from Nikki and he notices that she has added a Polaroid photo of them together in bed, him asleep, and she's smiling. In addition to the photo, there's a sticky note that says, love you, have a great day. And he's like, okay, whatever. He has the lunch and then he's speaking with Sarah on their lunch break, and he's taken a bite or two out of the sandwich, and she gets a hold of the sticky note and she's making fun of him for it. But then she says, what does this mean? And she turns over the sticky note and it says, I cannot remember what it says verbatim. I'm going to have to find it online, but it says something like, how did I do? Like, chef, like, what do you think of this? Cat. And in that moment, you're like, oh no. And we see that Bear has looked at his sandwich and she's cooked the cat and put it in his sandwich. That was definitely the grossest scene for me in the film and shocking. And I knew immediately, I was like, oh no, it's the cat. That was very well executed as well, because when he first opens the lunchbox, you just see the photo and the front of the sticky note, but he didn't turn it around until he was halfway through the sandwich. So that was a gross scene. After this happens at the music store, Bear doesn't even tell Sarah what's going on. I would have told her straight away. So this is another flag for me. I'm like, why are you not telling your friends that what's going on? This is very troubling behavior. It's extremely disturbing, but I think we see that he has a problem with communication, and I think he clearly doesn't want his friends to insert themselves in his relationship. He just wants everything to be fine with Nikki. He wants kind of everyone to stay away, and I don't think he really wants people to tell him that something's off. I don't think he wants to come to terms with the fact that the thing that he has wanted for so long is not good for him. So after work that day, Ian gets in the car with Bear and he is telling him that you should come over, we should have a boys' night, and I'm actually quite concerned about your relationship with Nikki because it feels like she's going through some psychotic break. There's something wrong with her and it looks like you're taking advantage of her. And I really like this scene because as we can see Nikki's progression and she's getting worse and worse, we're seeing that, you know, there's evidence that she didn't like him before. Thinking back to an earlier scene when she's leaving the bar and she thinks it's gross that someone would assume that they would be together, and how what Ian told him earlier when they were at the restaurant that she only saw him as a friend. Ian then saying to Bear, okay, this looks really bad. It looks like you're taking advantage of someone who's not in their right mind. I think that's a really important thing to call out because it did make me think about consent a lot in this movie as well. Making someone fall in love with you and sleep together and do all of that against their will, and it's clearly not Nikki anymore, is extremely problematic and very disturbing in its own sense. So it was really important to make that clear to the audience through Ian questioning about that in the car. He's just wanting to be with her, so he's not a great person. And it makes me really feel for Nikki, even though I'm disturbed by her behavior, even though it's creepy, it's getting worse and worse. I had a lot of more empathy for her than Bear because she's not in her right mind. It's not her choice that she's obsessed with him, and he's taking complete advantage of that. And I just really like that element to the film. It adds an extra layer and it makes his character disturbing to me as well. Who is the villain? I think it's Bear. And while we're in the car, Ian invites Bear to come to his place, boys only. We don't want Nikki there. She's being really weird. So on the way home, Bear stops the car and then he calls the customer service hotline for One Wish Willow, which is such a funny scene. So he's asking them, can they alter a wish? And the customer care person says, no, unfortunately, the wish ends when you die or Nikki dies. So tough luck, unfortunately. And we then hear, after he's talking on the hotline with this person, that there's this Nikki screaming in the background, like she's suffering, she's in pain. And this is when I started to think something has real Nikki's spirit. It's been replaced by a witch or some sort of demon that's taking over her, but the real Nikki's soul is with these Wish Willow people. So Bear returns home and then he finds Nikki just completely covered in filth. She's soiled herself. She's defecated on the floor. There's urine, there's vomit. She just looks like a mess. And so he says, it's okay, just go have a shower. She apologizes for being gross. While she's in the shower, he's yelling at her through the door and telling her that she can't cook the cat. It made him upset. I find this so interesting because couldn't you just sit her down and have a conversation with her? Because she's just kind of ignoring him this whole time until he says that he's going to go to a party tonight and it's just a boys' night. And that's when she immediately stops the shower. So clearly she has been listening to him. She wants to go. And he says, no, it's just a boys' night. And then she gets very upset because she knows that Sarah has messaged her and Sarah's going. And so anyway, they go to the party and they're all just hanging out. Nikki's being weird. And we see this really weird scene of Nikki where she decides to tell a poem. And it's a very disturbing poem. She finishes the poem and everyone's looking around and looking at her and side-eyeing each other and realizing this person is not okay, she's not well, she really needs help. Because if we didn't know about the wish, we know, okay, this person's going through a psychotic break, there's something wrong with her. We see from the reaction of Bear that he knows that something's wrong. He knows what he's doing. He's continuing just to hope for the best and everything will be great. But we slowly start to see him come to terms with reality here. And so anyway, they then decide to play a game. So in this, they're playing a version of Jenga where there's like a truth or dare on each of the blocks that you pull out. It's Bear's turn to pull a block out. He pulls a block out and it says, kiss the person on your left. And the person on his left is Sarah. This was a really great scene. We see Nikki immediately get up and she's pulling a face like... And she drags Sarah's chair back, puts her chair next to Bear, and kisses him. And this is just such an uncomfortable scene. This whole sequence at the party is just so bizarre and so weird. And I'm feeling bad for Nikki. I'm feeling bad for all the people in the room and secondhand embarrassment at the same time. And then so after this scene, we see Nikki start to get progressively worse. And then she smashes a bottle and stabs herself in the head. And this is just out of control at this point. So they say that they need to take Nikki to a hospital. We see this sequence. And then now Nikki and Bear are at home. Bear is understandably completely disturbed by this. And so they go to bed. Nikki threatens to if Bear doesn't join her in bed and they go to sleep. And so she goes to sleep. Then he wakes up in the middle of the night to a text from Sarah asking him to meet her. These scenes stress me out because clearly Nikki doesn't like Sarah. She's incredibly jealous. Do not go meet this girl. I knew I had a bad feeling about this from the start. Bear proceeds to get out of bed, and as he's leaving the room, he thinks that Nikki has woken up, but she's just sleep talking. And this scene is very telling as well because she's sleep talking to Bear and he asks her, is it so bad being with me? And she responds with, I've never been with you. And I thought that was gut-wrenching to hear, and we know that. And she also asks Bear to kill the possessive side of her because, you know, she's suffering. So he leaves, he goes and meets Sarah. He's having a really nice conversation with Sarah. She's talking about wanting to go away for university. She has one final acceptance letter left. In a previous scene, Sarah had been hoping to get admitted into certain universities, but she was rejected. So she had one final letter to open, and she wanted to open it when she was with Bear. So they're sitting in the car talking, and she tells Bear that Ian and Nikki had actually been casually hooking up for about a year. And she also sort of flirts with the idea of them potentially being together. And maybe he needs to be with someone more chill. And he says, someone like you? And she replies, yes, someone like me. And this is such a great scene because it's calm, they're talking, we're learning more about Nikki and the reality. And suddenly, I knew that this would happen. I knew that this was coming because I thought, oh no, like Nikki's got to wake up at some point and find them. I don't know. I was feeling anxious this entire time, but it was a really nice interaction between the characters, and I had some sort of hope for Sarah and their potential relationship because Bear realizes like, oh gosh, I don't think this is worth it. I don't think this is worth being with Nikki. It's too much. It's not what I wanted. And then in the middle of this conversation, we see Nikki smash a brick through Sarah's side of the window and then bash Sarah's head onto the brick until she's dead. And this scene was so shocking and so sudden. And we just see Bear just completely frozen and freaked out in the car. And yeah, this was really hard to watch. This was really tough because I think it was such a perfect building of her character. Her character was really nice, really not manipulative or trying to be a homewrecker at all to Bear, but just a respective friend that genuinely had feelings for him. And yes, it was a very heartbreaking scene to watch. And so after Sarah's dead, Nikki drags her body from the car. Nikki goes around to Bear and she says, I know, I'm sorry, it's okay, and tries to reassure him and comfort him. And then we see a sequence of her taking care of the body and managing that and telling Bear, just go home, go to sleep, like clean up, I've got this. This is what happens, you know, like she tried to come between us. So after this sequence, Bear's completely freaked out. And at this point, I started questioning, why are we not going to the police? Why are you going home, Bear? Go to the police. And I do wonder, that would be my tiny critique of the film. Why are we not going to the police? Why are we not telling about all of this crazy stuff, right? She's murdered someone, so surely they would understand. But he doesn't go to the police. Maybe this is just an imaginary world without the police. So I just rolled with it. But I thought, what? I was so frustrated in his character at this point because I'm thinking, well, yeah, maybe you're traumatized. You've been really dealing with this person. It's like maybe being in an abusive relationship. You're terrified of what is she going to do to me? Maybe I can't go to the police. But at this point I would. I think, come on, Bear. Come on. Like, you need to go. And it wouldn't be his fault either because she could be locked away in prison and then you're free of her. So instead of going home, Bear goes to the mystic shop again and he's looking for the One Wish Willows and he can't find them and he's freaking out. He then talks to the sales assistant, who's a completely different person this time, which I think is a great touch. And the sales assistant just jokes with him and then says, no, they're right here at the counter. You can buy them. And he's telling him, really sorry, like, damn, you must have been through a lot. And so then Bear buys a bunch of these One Wish Willows. After he leaves the store, he attempts to break the One Wish Willow, but it's not working. No matter how hard he tries, he can't break it. Hi guys, I totally forgot to add in here that Bear actually stops the car and he does have the final university offer letter for Sarah. He opens it up and he finds that she was actually accepted into university. So this was an extra gut punch and I thought it really had an extra impact on the film. And there was also an amazing scene where Bear is just screaming in pain inside the car and it's just an amazing sequence. And so he gets the idea to take it to Ian's house and have Ian make a wish for him. So he goes to Ian's house, tries to explain everything that's wrong. He's being manic. Ian is not believing him. And I'm getting a bit frustrated in Ian. And I understand that your friend's crazy. Your friend's lost it. I don't know what's going on. I understand a normal person wouldn't believe their friend. But for me, I would do it for my friend. I would say, yeah, okay, let me do this wish, whatever you need, whatever makes you feel good. I think I'm a bit of a ride or die type of person. So I'm just like, yeah, let me help you out. Whatever's going to soothe your brain, I'm going to do this for you. He's explained to Ian everything that's happened. Please just break this wish. I need to sort this out. Ian then breaks the wish and he wishes for $1 billion. And then immediately money and wads of cash just start falling from the sky into Ian's lounge room. And we just hear Bear cry and just go, no, because it's just, I mean, I would have grabbed a random person on the street at this point and be like, can you please just make this wish for me? This is weird, but can you do it? I'll give you some money if you make this wish or something like that. I would have taken some of the money from Ian, given it to a stranger and paid them to make a wish to get this crazy Nikki off me. That's what I would have done. Ian is, I'm sure, over the moon and shocked because obviously you're not really going to believe your friend. If my friend is that upset, I'm not going to be a dick about it. Like he's like, oh yeah, all right, it's not going to work. I wish for $1 million. But at the same time, I'm like, wouldn't you just do it for your friend? Just wish that thing for your friend to calm them down. Anyway, that was just my personal opinion. Bear is just distraught. He doesn't know what to do. I mean, this is another frustrating thing. And I kind of like that the film has these moments because it gives you something to talk about as well. Like what would you do in that situation? And of course, like you're not in your right mind as well. You're going through this daily abuse and this toxic behavior and your brain is just not thinking right. You've just witnessed the very brutal death of one of your friends. Your other friend doesn't believe you. So Bear returns home and Nikki has made a complete shrine of him with candles and all sorts of things. He walks into the kitchen and we see Sarah's dead body in a chair, naked, and he doesn't know what to do. He's completely freaked out at this point. So Nikki did not get rid of the body. It's just there. At this point, Bear is trying to bring the wish to Nikki and explain to her to make a wish, to reverse it. And then he sees Sarah's corpse in the kitchen, just sitting there. It's not funny, but it's so bonkers at this point, and it's just so messed up and so shocking. They're just like, oh my gosh, what more could happen? And so Nikki comes with a gun at gunpoint, threatening to kill herself. She's completely lost it. She's threatening Bear and herself at this point, and she's sitting and screaming, and then we hear Ian knocking at the door, and he's knocking and saying, "It's real, dude, I've got the money, what's going on?" And then he starts hearing what's happening with Nikki screaming at him on the couch. It's all going on. It's a very intense scene, and Ian's hearing something's wrong, and he breaks down the door. As soon as he breaks down the door, Nikki shoots him. He's gone. And this whole scene, I was just like, oh my gosh, it's crazy. He takes the gun, he goes into the bathroom, locks himself in there, and is planning to, I don't know what I can and can't say on YouTube, so I'm trying to be careful. So he's planning to go as well. He tries, he can't do it, and he decides to take oxycodone instead. And he takes a bunch of pills, and then he decides, actually, no, I think I might not want that. And before he has the chance to revert the situation, we hear Nikki has cracked the One Wish willow, and then magically he's fallen in love with her. So we now know what she has wished for, because this whole movie she's saying, "You don't love me as much as I love you. Why don't you love me?" And it's a really good build up to know, okay, well, she's definitely wished for him to be in love with her as much as she loves him. And so he walks out of the bathroom, he's still ingested the pills, and he goes into the lounge room, and we just see this shot of him smiling at her, and she's looking at him. And this scene was really funny. We watched in the cinema. It was just the perfect amount, the right amount of comedy. And we all just started laughing in the cinema when this happened. And as Bear is possessed, he then kisses her before he immediately dies from an overdose from the pills. And so as we know, with the One Wish willow, it ends. It doesn't work anymore once someone has died. So Bear passes away, and then suddenly we see the wish completely wear off, and the real Nikki snaps back into life. And she's just sitting there with the body of her boyfriend. Ian's there, and she just starts panicking, and that's the end of the movie. It ends with a beautiful song in the background. So I think this movie was exceptional. I have a problem with going into a lot of detail, so if you didn't like that, I'm really sorry, but I really just wanted to be concise with the spoilers and the plot for people who don't have the chance to watch the movie or are too apprehensive about it. Honestly, this movie was incredibly hyped. I was expecting a really great film, and I confidently say it completely delivers on the hype. And because this movie had so much hype, I was also expecting gore, the violence, or the actions in the storyline to be extreme, to the extreme. And maybe it's because I'm a seasoned horror fan and I've watched a lot of different horrors and things, and I'm quite desensitized. I didn't think it was too over the top, and that point of like, oh, this is so disturbing, this is the most disturbing movie you'll ever see. I don't think it will be the most disturbing movie you'll ever see. It really depends on what freaks you out. I actually have a disturbing movie tier list, and all of those movies, to me, I would find a lot more disturbing than this movie. But in saying that, I really did like the fact that it was grounded in somewhat of reality. I do like that it didn't go completely balls to the wall, while it could have even explored that even more and been even more disturbing. A lot of the time, quality is better than quantity. And I definitely think that it has those extreme elements, especially if you don't watch a lot of horror and you're hearing about this and thinking, what is this movie? I want to go check it out. You will definitely be disturbed. I was disturbed, but because it took inspiration from a lot of other horrors I've seen before, it's not unfamiliar territory for me. That being said, I think it's way more important to just focus on less is more, quality over quantity, and getting those elements right and not going completely unrealistic, crazy town, and just focusing on something that could be quite explained as somewhat grounded in reality. It's a much smarter move to create a very tight, smooth film with a narrative that is told really well. I've said this a million times. It's a very simple concept, but it's executed perfectly. I think the acting is incredible. I've had some people say and question Indian Everett's acting and think it's overacting, it's over the top, but she's under a spell, so it's believable to me. I disagree with that. I think her acting is exceptional, and I also like that there's a difference between, as Kari Barker mentioned, like the possession performance or just being a very jealous girlfriend. And you can clearly tell with his directing that he has achieved that. Really, really enjoyed this film. I highly recommend going and checking it out in cinemas. It's great. There aren't a lot of jump scares, which I really appreciated as well. And I do think that everything that it was trying to tell was told perfectly. It wasn't too much or too less. It's like a Goldilocks film for me, I would say. Just right. And the parts that I would say personally disturbed me and rattled me the most, probably with the cat sandwich. That really shocked me. And then I really liked the scene where she was watching him sleep. And I also like the scene the next day where he's looking at the door with the duct tape. Those are my favorite parts to the film. I found those scenes really like, oh, and I think that's when you start to know the shift, when it's getting really bad. You've been primed for these crazy things to happen. So you're just thinking, okay, it's going to get worse and worse. But I love those shifts within the film. I also think the film is exceptional with talking about codependency, but in the most extreme way. And codependency, mental health and relationships, I think it's really great. It tells that performance through the exceptional acting so well. I really think this is an amazing movie and definitely my favorite of the year so far and my absolute favorite horror of the year. So I really hope you like this review. I'm sorry I've been yapping for such a long time. If it's too much in detail, please let me know. And please let me know if you'd like to see more in-depth spoiler reviews of this kind. I loved making this and I'm really trying to get to 1,000 followers so I can still create these videos for you. So if you like this video, please give it a like and hit subscribe. And if you had a one wish, Willow, leave a comment below on what you would wish for. And that's it for today. I love you so, so, so much and have a lovely, lovely day. That's it. Bye.